The Exilari Empire had ruled the stars for centuries. Their warships patrolled the vast reaches of their empire, ensuring no species dared challenge their power. But on this day, something changed. A deep space sensor station, floating on the farthest edge of Silari-controlled space, picked up an anomaly. A strange energy signature had appeared from nowhere, something the scanners could not identify. High Commander Vrax sat in his command chair aboard the battleship Dreadfang, looking at the holographic display in front of him. The sensor station's report was flashing, filled with unknown readings. His tactical officer, a pale-skinned Silari named Korek, studied the data, his face tense. "Commander," Korek said, his voice uncertain, "this energy signature, it does not match any known species in our database." Vrax narrowed his yellow eyes. "Then run it again," he ordered. "It must be a malfunction." Korek obeyed, but the readings remained unchanged. The energy signature pulsed like a heartbeat, strong and steady. And then something worse happened. The signal moved. "It's heading toward us," Korek said, his voice now filled with disbelief. "Fast." Vrax stood up, his claws gripping the edge of his command console. No unknown ship had ever dared enter auxiliary space without permission. Whoever it was, they were either foolish or dangerous. "Put the fleet on high alert," Vrax commanded. "I want all weapons ready." The bridge crew moved quickly, their clawed hands running across glowing control panels. A warning signal spread across the auxiliary fleet, 20 warships, all positioned in a protective formation around the sector. Then, through the massive viewport of the battleship, they saw it. A colossal warship appeared from the blackness of space. Its dark metal hull reflected no light, as if it absorbed the void itself. Its shape was unlike any ship that Silari had ever seen. Sleek, angular, and impossibly large. Korek's voice trembled. "That ship, it wasn't there a moment ago. How did it get so close without detection?" Vrax's claws dug into his palm. "This was impossible. No ship can hide from our sensors," he growled. "Unless..." His words trailed off as another realization hit him. The unknown ship wasn't just close. It was already inside their formation, right in the middle of the auxiliary fleet. A new message flashed on the display. An incoming transmission. "They're hailing us," Korek said. His voice had an edge of fear. Vrax straightened. On screen, the display changed, revealing the human. A tall figure, clad in dark military armor, sat in a command chair. His eyes were calm, but something about him radiated power, confidence, and control. The Exilari had fought many species. They had crushed civilizations, burned worlds, and enslaved countless beings. But this one human, sitting on his ship's bridge, made Vrax feel something he had never felt before. A deep, unnatural fear. The human leaned forward. His voice was steady, but there was an undeniable weight behind his words. "This is Captain Ilias Carter of the Terran warship Indomitable," he said. The bridge of the Dreadfang fell into silence. Vrax could hear his crew breathing, but no one spoke. Terran. The humans were a minor species, barely recognized, barely noticed. They had no empire, no great fleets. They were weak, or so the Exilari had thought. And yet, this warship was real. It was here. And it was unlike anything they had ever encountered before. Vrax took a deep breath, forcing himself to remain calm. "You have entered Silari space without permission, human. State your purpose." Captain Carter's expression did not change. If he felt threatened, he did not show it. Instead, he simply replied, "We are just passing through." Vrax bared his fangs. No ship just passes through Silari space unannounced. The human's lips curled into a small smile, one that made Vrax's claws tighten. "That's true," Carter admitted. "But here we are anyway." For the first time in his long military career, Vrax didn't know what to say. This was not how encounters with new species went. The Exilari were the dominant force in this part of the galaxy. They were feared. They were obeyed. But this human, this captain of an unknown warship, was acting as if the auxiliary meant nothing. Vrax forced himself to regain control. If you do not turn back immediately, we will consider your presence an act of war. The moment the words left his mouth, he saw it. For the first time, Captain Carter's expression changed. The human leaned forward slightly, his blue eyes cold as ice. When he spoke again, his voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of something ancient, something powerful. You don't want that. The temperature on the bridge seemed to drop. Vrax felt a chill crawl up his spine, but he refused to back down. He turned to Korak. Target their ship, he ordered. Now. Korak hesitated. Commander, our targeting systems. The screen glitched. Every display on the bridge flickered, then turned black. The lights dimmed. A strange humming sound vibrated through the walls of the battleship. Vrax spun back toward the viewport. Outside, the Indomitable had not moved. It simply hovered there, silent and unmoving. Yet, somehow, it had just disabled the entire auxiliary fleet. Vrax's breathing grew heavy. His claws dug into the console. His crew looked at him, waiting for orders. But what could he say? Then the human warship sent another message. It appeared on the main screen, short and simple. Leave now. This is your only warning. The message vanished, and in the silence that followed, Vrax faced a choice. He could attack. He could order his fleet to fire every weapon they had. But if the humans had this kind of power, then what would happen next? A single drop of sweat slid down his temple. Vrax had always been confident in battle. He had always known how a fight would end before it began. But for the first time in his life, he wasn't sure, and that terrified him. To be continued. Vrax struggled to keep his breathing steady. The bridge of the Dreadfang was silent, the crew frozen in place. Every screen remained dark, every system unresponsive. It was as if the human warship had simply flipped a switch and shut down an entire auxiliary battle fleet. Impossible. He turned his gaze back to the viewport. The Indomitable hovered in space, motionless, unthreatening in posture, yet more dangerous than anything Vrax had ever encountered. His mind raced. How had they done this? What kind of technology could disable 20 warships without firing a single shot? The thought sent a chill down his spine. Korak's voice finally broke the silence, weak and shaken. Commander, what do we do? Vrax clenched his jaw. He had spent his entire career conquering species who feared the auxiliary. He had crushed rebellions, destroyed fleets, and watched planets burn at his command. Never had he felt the need to ask himself what to do. But this was different. The screen flickered back to life. A single line of text appeared, a message from the human warship. Last chance. Leave. The words were simple, direct. No threats, no grand speeches, just a cold statement of fact. Vrax felt his claws dig into his palm. His pride screamed at him to respond with force. To fight. To show these humans what happened to those who dared challenge the auxiliary. But logic held him back. If the humans had wanted a fight, they would have already fired. They didn't need to make threats. They had proven their power without lifting a finger. And if they could disable an entire fleet so effortlessly, what else were they capable of? Vrax swallowed his pride. He had survived this long by being a warrior, but also a strategist. He had to be smart. With great effort, he forced his voice to remain steady. All ships, stand down. Korak's eyes widened. Commander. Vrax turned to his crew. We retreat. A murmur spread across the bridge, disbelief mixed with quiet relief. Korak hesitated, but after a long pause, he gave the order. All ships, disengage. Slowly, the auxiliary fleet powered down their weapons and adjusted their trajectories, pulling back from the human warship. Even as they left, the Indomitable remained still, watching, not pursuing, not gloating, simply waiting. As the Dreadfang turned away, Vrax took one last look at the mysterious warship. He had never backed down from an enemy before, but this was not just any enemy. He had a sinking feeling that today was only the beginning. And for the first time in his life, he feared what might come next. Vrax sat in silence inside his quarters, his claws tapping against the metal table. The auxiliary fleet had returned to their territory, but the unease still weighed heavy on his chest. The Indomitable had let them leave without a chase, without a fight. Yet the sheer power they had displayed haunted him. A warship that could shut down an entire fleet without firing a shot. It defied everything he knew about warfare. A soft chime rang. Korak stood at the door. "Commander, the High Council demands a report." Vrax exhaled slowly. He had expected this. The auxiliary did not take kindly to retreat, especially not from a species they considered insignificant. As the transmission connected, the holographic forms of the council appeared before him. 5 figures, their gazes sharp and unyielding. "Commander Vrax," the eldest counselor began, his voice cold. "Explain why a fully armed fleet turned and fled from a single human vessel." The words stung. Vrax straightened, keeping his expression neutral. The human ship possessed technology beyond our understanding. It rendered our systems inoperable within seconds. We were defenseless. A murmur rippled through the council. The youngest member scoffed. "A bluff. You let fear cloud your judgment." Vrax's claws dug into his palm. "It was not a bluff," he said, his voice firm. "Had we engaged, we would have been destroyed." The eldest counselor leaned forward. "And how do you know this?" Vrax hesitated. The truth was, he didn't know. But every instinct, every survival sense in his body screamed that the humans had held back. That warship could have ended them in an instant, but it hadn't. Instead, it had given them a warning. "They let us go," he admitted, but that was a choice, not a weakness. The council chamber fell silent. Vrax could feel their doubt, their frustration, but also their growing fear. If what he said was true, then humanity was not just another species to be conquered. "They will not remain passive forever," another counselor murmured. "If they possess such power, they may turn it against us." The eldest counselor nodded slowly. "We cannot allow that." His gaze sharpened. "Commander Vrax, you will return. This time, you will not retreat." Vrax stiffened. "You wish to provoke them. We wish to understand them. Test their defenses, learn their secrets." The counselor's voice was calm, but there was no mistaking the order. "And if possible, take their technology for ourselves." Vrax clenched his jaw. He knew this was a mistake, but disobeying the council was not an option. As the transmission ended, Vrax turned to Korak. "Prepare the fleet," he ordered grimly. "We are going back." And deep in his mind, a single thought echoed. This will not end well. The auxiliary fleet moved cautiously through the void, their ships maintaining formation as they neared the last known position of the human warship. Every officer on board was tense. They had faced it once and survived, but returning felt like tempting fate. Vrax stood on the bridge, his eyes scanning the vast emptiness ahead. So far, there was no sign of the human vessel, but that didn't mean they were alone. "Any signals?" Vrax asked. Korak checked the sensors. "None, but something feels wrong." Vrax agreed. The silence was unnatural. The last time they had been here, the Indomitable had appeared as if from nowhere. It had disabled their fleet instantly. But now, nothing. "Keep scanning," he ordered, "and maintain shields at maximum." Minutes passed, then hours. The tension grew heavier with each moment. The humans should have noticed them by now. Were they waiting, setting a trap, or had they simply moved on? "Commander," a voice called out, "we've picked up a faint energy signature. Very faint, almost like it's been deliberately hidden." Vrax's claws tightened. "Can you trace it?" The officer worked quickly, isolating the signal. A visual display appeared on the main screen. A small object, not a ship, but a probe. A listening device, Korak muttered. Possibly, Vrax replied. Or a warning. Before he could give the order to retrieve it, the probe activated. A pulse of blue light rippled through space, expanding outward at incredible speed. The bridge lights flickered. Alarms blared. Electromagnetic interference detected. Vrax's mind raced. This was it. The humans had seen them. And now, they were responding. Shields up. Battle formations. The moment he spoke, the stars themselves shifted. From the darkness, as if emerging from a shadow, the Indomitable appeared. It had been waiting. The massive warship dwarfed their vessels, its sleek black hull reflecting the dim light of distant stars. Its weapons remained offline, but that only made it more terrifying. They were here the whole time, Korak whispered. Vrax felt it too. They had been lured in. A transmission cut through the static. The screen flickered, revealing a human officer, calm, unreadable, in control. You returned, the human said. I hope, for your sake, it was not to repeat past mistakes. Vrax took a slow breath. He had been sent to test humanity's power. But now, staring into the eyes of an enemy who had already won before the battle even started, he realized the truth. This was not a test. It was a warning. The silence on the auxiliary bridge was thick with tension. Every officer stood frozen, watching the screen where the human commander's unblinking gaze met their own. The Indomitable loomed outside, its presence an undeniable reminder of their last disastrous encounter. Vrax felt a chill crawl up his spine. The humans weren't attacking. They didn't need to. I ask again, the human commander said. His voice was calm, too calm. Why have you returned? Vrax swallowed hard. We were ordered to investigate. He forced his voice to remain steady. To understand what happened the last time we encountered your vessel. The human's lips twitched, almost as if he found the answer amusing. Understand, he repeated. Tell me, Commander Vrax, what exactly do you think you will understand? The question hit harder than any weapon could. What did they think they would learn? That the humans had spared them before. That the Indomitable had disabled an entire fleet effortlessly, but had chosen not to destroy them. The auxiliary leadership had demanded answers, but standing here, facing the very power they feared, Vrax realized they weren't ready for the truth. A sharp beep interrupted his thoughts. Commander, Korak whispered. They scanned us. Vrax's throat tightened. The humans had just swept through their systems effortlessly. If they could do that, it meant they could also shut them down just as quickly. The human commander leaned back slightly, as if considering something. Then, in a voice that was neither threatening nor reassuring, he said, You were warned before. Now I will give you one final lesson. The screen blinked off. Outside, the Indomitable shifted. It didn't fire. It didn't move aggressively. Instead, it disappeared. Gone. Vanished. No jump signatures, no distortion, no hint of where it had gone. As if it had never been there at all. A wave of fear passed through the auxiliary officers. Korak whispered. They were just showing us. Vrax understood. The humans weren't afraid of them. They could have crushed them at any moment, but instead, they had demonstrated absolute control. And that was more terrifying than any battle could ever be. Vrax stood frozen on the bridge, his mind racing. The Indomitable had vanished right before their eyes. No trace, no signal, nothing. The auxiliary officers around him whispered in hushed, fearful tones. Korak's claws tapped nervously on the console. How did they do that? Vrax had no answer. He had spent his whole career studying warfare. But this was something else. The humans had shown them power beyond understanding. Not brute force. Not overwhelming firepower. Control. Precision. Mastery of the battlefield in a way no species had ever achieved. A quiet beep interrupted his thoughts. A message appeared on their console. A transmission, but no source. A single sentence. Now you understand. The bridge fell into absolute silence. The humans had left them with a final message, a warning, a lesson, or something worse, proof that they were already inside auxiliary systems. Vrax exhaled slowly. We're leaving. Korak turned sharply. But, no, Vrax said firmly. We have seen what we needed to see. We report back. As the auxiliary fleet turned away, retreating from the forbidden zone, Vrax stared into the void. He knew the truth now. They had never stood a chance. And if the humans ever decided to bring war to the auxiliary homeworld, it wouldn't be a war at all. The auxiliary fleet moved at full speed, retreating from the terrifying silence left behind by the Indomitable. No one spoke. No one dared to. They had seen too much. Vrax sat in his command chair, his claws gripping the armrests tightly. The human message echoed in his mind. Now you understand. Understand what? That humans were more advanced than they had ever imagined. That they could erase an entire fleet without firing a single shot. Or worse, that they chose not to. Korak broke the silence. Commander, what do we tell High Command? His voice was quiet, uncertain. Vrax closed his eyes for a moment, then looked at his officer. The truth. Korak flinched. They won't believe us. They will when they see the sensor logs, Vrax muttered. He knew High Command would demand action. They would see the humans as a threat, an enemy that needed to be studied, countered, prepared for. But Vrax knew better. There was no preparation. The humans had let them go. Not out of mercy, but because they didn't see the auxiliary as a real threat. That was the most terrifying realization of all. The Indomitable hadn't destroyed them because it didn't need to. As their ships neared the homeworld, Vrax felt a deep, sinking dread. High Command would never accept the truth. They would push, they would provoke, they would demand answers. And one day, the humans would stop answering. That would be the day the auxiliary empire ceased to exist.